Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So today we're going to be analyzing the results of last night's primaries, and actually we had a ballot measure. These took place across the country. This is probably the biggest and most important primary of the election season thus far, up until the midterms, which take place in November. Really sets this is kind of like the kickoff point. Last night was kind of the end of the primary season. We still have a few more critical primaries in states like New Hampshire, but really last night was the big one. Last night was kind of the wrap up for all the critical primaries before we head to the general election. And we had a lot of results come in, a lot of interesting results. Overall, it was a pretty solid night for us. I'm very happy with the results overall. There was a couple races here and there that were a little closer than I expected. Obviously, we had the Kansas ballot measure that was not very good at all. Washington, we still have a lot of votes outstanding, so unfortunately, we won't get a really good gauge on that. Maybe I'll make a separate video covering that. But really, overall, I was very happy with the results last night. So we're going to start off in the state of Michigan. I would say great state of Michigan, but it's not a great state because Michigan is cringe. I'm from Ohio, so not a big Michigan fan here, but that's okay. One of the reasons I don't like Michigan is Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer is one of the worst governors in the United States of America. She shut down Michigan. She has done nothing for the state. She says, "Oh, I'm this like." She brands herself as this like populist, working class like hero. Because Michigan, it has very unionized state, very working class state, very blue collar state. A lot of the people in Michigan are blue collar workers, whether it's auto workers or fishermen or just whatever. And so, Gretchen Whitmer, she likes to brand herself as a supporter of those people, but she's really not. She literally just LARPs about abortion on Twitter and then signs these pretty left-leaning bills and shuts down the state's economy, which actually hurts the blue-collar workers and the small business owners. And now we finally have a candidate who can take her on, and that is Tudor Dixon. Tudor Dixon, she's awesome. Originally, I supported Garrett Soldano in this race. He came in third place, but he kind of fell off a bit. But I've come around a few weeks ago. I came around and I began supporting Tudor Dixon. I've interacted with her on Twitter. She is incredible. She's awesome. She is a great candidate. She's very electable. She's great. She's perfect on the issues for Michigan. She is literally the perfect candidate to defeat Gretchen Whitmer. Kevin Rinke, he's nothing special. He was just this rich dude trying to win a Republican primary. He had nothing special when it came to the issues. So I'm glad he lost. Soldano was a good candidate. I wish he did better. I would have maybe liked to see him do a little bit better. But I would like to see him run for office in the future because he is a good candidate. But that's besides the point. Let's go back to Tudor Dixon. So Tudor Dixon, as you may not know, she is a breast cancer survivor. She used to work in steel manufacturing. Big thing in Michigan. The reason Trump won Michigan for the first time since the 1980s, Trump was the first Republican to win Michigan since the 1980s, and he won that because he got huge margins from steel workers and auto workers in the Detroit area and the working class suburbs, like Flint, up in this part of the state. And so Tudor Dixon, and then Trump lost it in 2020 because he still did decently with those voters, but he got absolutely obliterated in Grand Rapids. Trump did okay with working class voters, but suburbanites and traditional Republicans in Grand Rapids are more establishmentarian. They didn't like Trump's rhetoric and how bullish he was. A lot of them turned against him, but a lot of the Upper Peninsula, this Upper Peninsula and upper northern part of Michigan, a lot of those voters are big fans of Trump as well. So in order for Republicans to win in November, we have to unite sort of the more rural Upper Peninsula, more rural Upper Peninsula, more working class, whiter part of the state. We have to unite the working class part, the auto workers, the manufacturers, those types of voters near Detroit and the counties surrounding it. And we also have to unite the more establishmentarian, more suburban Republicans who are more moderate near Grand Rapids. And Tudor Dixon is the candidate to unite all three of those factions. Let's see how she did. She's actually from the Grand Rapids area. Kent County and Ottawa counties are two counties that turned heavily away from Trump, and she did very well. She got 40% of the vote in Kent County, 31% in Barrie, Allegheny. A lot of these counties she did pretty well in overall. 37% in Ottawa, 40% in Muskegon, 33% in Newaygo. But yeah, Muskegon 40% of the vote and Kent 39%. That is the big. Those are really good margins to get for a Republican in Grand Rapids. She did very well in that part of the state. We get over here to Macomb County. This is a huge blue collar county, huge, very working class county. It's an Obama-Trump county, I believe. Tudor Dixon got 45% of the vote. Let's go over to St. Clair County, home to my good friend NTEP. 41% of the vote. St. Clair, another more populist blue collar county. So Tudor Dixon, Genesee. I don't know if Genesee's that blue collar. I think it is, but it may be a little bit more suburban. She still did very well there with 33%. Washtenaw, another kind of more blue collar county, 50% of the vote. Wayne County, home to Detroit, that's some of it is a little bit more, is a little working class. She got 46%, Livingston 44%, and she did incredible in the Upper Peninsula, northern part of the state. So Tudor Dixon is literally the perfect candidate in Michigan, and I think she's going to take on Gretchen Whitmer easily. She's perfect. She's a perfect fit for Michigan. She's great on the issues, and she's going to win handily, hopefully. Let's go over to the Arizona Senate race. We're going to look at Arizona Senate race. We have Blake Masters, the Republican endorsed by Donald Trump. What is this, man? Look at this picture of him. This smile looks so creepy. It's kind of funny. But Blake Masters is incredible. He is one of my favorite candidates running this cycle. He's great on the issues. He's a strong America First fighter. He's probably the best candidate to run for office this cycle. It was incredible to see him get the Trump endorsement. He's young. He's full of energy. He's an absolute genius. This guy's so smart. It's not even funny. And he's a perfect on the issues. He's America First to the core. Excuse me. He is a strong Republican candidate, and he is probably going to go on to defeat Mark Kelly. It's going to be a close race because Mark Kelly is a very strong. He's very electable, but Blake Masters is too. I mean, Blake Masters has a lot of appeal to Arizona, and he's a smart guy. He'll know how to handle the media and handle all the attacks better than someone like Martha McSally or and the other Republicans who ran. So yeah, Blake Masters is a great candidate. I think he's going to win this race. I'm glad he won the primary. Great on the issues. Let's go look at the governor race real quickly. Come over down here. Like Carrie Lake, the news anchor, who actually was in a very competitive race. I was checking this race last night on my phone, and I was like, holy crap, Karen Taylor Robinson is up by like 10. So for those of you who do not know, Carrie Lake is the America First candidate. She's a more populist Republican. She is endorsed by people like Donald Trump. Karen Taylor Robinson is a more moderate, I guess, neoconservative Republican endorsed by people like the McCain family and Doug Ducey, Mike Pence, kind of like those kind of Republicans. This was once again another battle between people like Mike Pence and Trump, the more establishment Republican Party, the billionaires who only care about tax cuts, and the more populist Republicans who want to take a stand on cultural issues, fight back against the radical left, and put our country first. And so this was going to be people said, oh, it looked like Carrie Lake was going to win handily in this race. She did not, actually. It was surprising. This race is incredibly close, although only 80% of the vote is in, and the remaining vote is expected to slightly favor Carrie Lake. Most outlets have predicted Carrie Lake has won this race, but this was really close. This primary is way closer than I thought. If you go over and look at the Wikipedia and look at the polls, Carrie Lake was beating Karen Taylor Robinson very handily in this race. So this race should have been a lock for Carrie Lake, but it ended up being very close. One of the reasons Carrie Lake won actually was only because Matt Salmon, who is once again a more moderate Republican, he dropped out of the race, but his name was still on the ballot. He took away about 4% of the vote. It's very likely those 4% of voters would have gone to Karen Taylor Robinson, thus putting her about 47% and probably beating out Carrie Lake. So Matt Salmon, I love you. Thank you for staying. Thank you. So yeah, Matt Salmon, he's a more moderate Republican, but he came in clutch for us because he dropped it out of the race, but he dropped it out of the race late enough that his name was still on the ballot, and so he took away a lot of votes that probably would have gone to Karen Taylor Robinson. So though a lot of people were saying, well, Carrie Lake's endorsed by Trump, she did so well in the polls among Republicans, why was this race so competitive? And the answer is very simply independents. I believe a lot of independents and possibly some Democrats flipped over and supported Karen Taylor Robinson. I mean, Maricopa County is the only county Karen Taylor Robinson is leading in. Every other county, it's pretty close as well. But if you look at the more Democratic counties, such as like Pima, it's 43. It's pretty competitive. If you come over here, Apache, Carrie Lake's up big. Coniso, Carrie Lake's up by like 5. All of these counties, she's up by like 10 or so, 10, 15. So yeah, so I think a lot of independents and a lot of more moderate Republicans just turned out heavily. A lot of Carrie Lake supporters probably thought she had this in the bag because the polls were so high, and she was just sending a blitz of ads. So Carrie Lake, this race was a lot closer than I thought it would be, but Carrie Lake did get the victory, and I do think she'll go on to defeat Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs is literally like just a feminist SJW type. You'd see like Ben Shapiro debate like on YouTube. So she is just like, she's not a good candidate for Arizona, which is a more moderate state. If the Democrats put up a more moderate candidate, I would say this race could be competitive because so many moderate Republicans and more neoconservative type did turn out against Carrie Lake. But because Katie Hobbs is just so far left of a candidate, I think Carrie Lake should win this race handily. Even if it was a moderate Democrat, I think Carrie Lake would still win. But I think Carrie Lake's going to win by a bigger margin just simply because the Democrats have a horrible candidate. While Karen Taylor, so yeah, like I said, this race does kind of concern me a tad because Karen Taylor Robinson did make this race so competitive. It's clear a lot of independents and moderate Republicans don't really like Carrie Lake, but I think they'll come around and support her. And it's a primary, not a whole lot to take out of it. We're gonna go look at the Missouri Senate election. Come over here. No one cares about the Democratic primary. They're gonna lose by like 50 points. Let's look at the Missouri primary. So the Missouri primary. So for those of you who do not know, Missouri is a very Republican-leaning state. It used to be kind of like that bellwether. You know, it would vote for whoever won the election. But since like 2008 or so, it has just been increasingly more Republican, just because the rural areas are just maxing out. Missouri is a very white, very Christian, very blue-collar state, and it's also very rural. All those things combined, and boom, Missouri is a solid Republican state. So Eric Schmidt, who is the Missouri Attorney General, he defeated Vicky Hartzler, who is a representative, and Eric Greitens, who is the former governor. Eric Greitens was probably the best on the issues. His big thing was he was anti-establishment. As governor, he took money out of he took on special interests and really put the people of Missouri first. He's a solid governor. Unfortunately, he had a lot of scandals. He was actually forced to resign. There's a lot of rumors he had some domestic abuse and some sex scandals. So keep in mind, he has never been proven guilty. He has never been charged, never been proven guilty, but there have been a lot of scandals against him, and that really hurt his campaign, especially because Eric Schmidt and Vicky Hartzler, a lot of people attacked him for that, and it was a very well-known case. Josh Hawley, who is very popular in Missouri and who is the senator of Missouri, he has made a big stand against Eric Greitens and said, yeah, this guy is bad. So Eric Greitens, that really hurt his campaign. If he had served his entire term as governor, and maybe it didn't have the scandals, I think he probably could have won this race because he was definitely a good fit for the state and a good candidate. And unfortunately, he did not. Eric Schmidt, however, as the current Attorney General, did win this race pretty handily, actually. A poll for this race relatively competitive between Schmidt, Hartzler, and Greitens. It's pretty much a three-way race between these three candidates. That was until Eric Schmidt came out and said he would not support Mitch McConnell to be majority leader. That is a big thing in Missouri. Missouri is a more, I guess you could say, populous state. They're not big fans of Mitch McConnell, and Eric Schmidt coming out against supporting McConnell was kind of a big thing that made a lot of voters on the fence, a lot of more conservative voters, because Missouri is a very conservative state. A lot of more conservative voters say, you know what, this guy's fine, we'll support him. He's a good candidate, and Schmidt is a good candidate. And then the other thing is Trump did a little bit of trolling. So for those of you who did not know, Trump, like 2 days ago, he came out on Truth Social, his new social media platform, and he simply said, I endorse Eric. Obviously, there's Eric Greitens and there's Eric Schmidt. So Trump endorsed Eric. He did not say which one. Now he said it's Schmidt because Schmidt won, but he did not say which Eric he was endorsing. He just said Eric. So Trump did a little bit of trolling. And I think another thing that helped Schmidt was A, that the fact that he could come out against McConnell, and B, his name appeared on the ballot first. People who just saw Eric Schmidt's name before they saw Eric Greitens' name. So that's another reason I think Schmidt probably won this race. But yeah, Schmidt's a great candidate. I've supported him for a long time. A lot of people like Greitens. I've never been a big fan of Greitens personally. I think he's good on policy, but I don't know. His scandal. He's very scandal plagued, and that makes me kind of suspicious of him. Especially the fact that Josh Hawley, who prosecuted him, Josh Hawley's a great senator and he's a good guy, and the fact that he is saying, yeah, don't support Eric Greitens. This guy's an awful person. I literally prosecuted him. Turned me very much off to Eric Greitens. So I'm very happy Eric Schmidt won. He's going to be a great senator, and while he might be not like this great America First warrior, he is going to be much better than the rest. He's a very conservative guy, and he's done a great job as Attorney General, and he'll continue that on in the U.S. Senate. Let's go on to the Kansas ballot measure. So in the state of Kansas, I talked about this on the preview to this video, where they had this measure, which would actually, which if it passed, if yes got enough votes, it would give the Kansas state legislature the ability to outlaw abortion and pass abortion restrictions. Now, before we even talk about this, I just want to read you what this says, okay? So the Kansas state so if you're pretend you're a voter, you're not really that well informed. You don't like your average person does not go in and say, look at this, if we can read. It doesn't go in and say, yes, let's read every single ballot measure and that I'm going to see in the ballot. No, your average person does not do that because they don't care. Let's be honest. So if you come up and you see this, I mean, this isn't the actual thing it said, but it was just very poorly worded. It was like a paragraph long. It was talking about like possibly restricting abortion up until like complete ban on abortion. It was horribly worded. It was like a paragraph long. Is your average voter going to bother to read that? No, they're just going to put yes, yes, or no, no, no. They're not just going to be like, oh yeah, let's read the entire ballot measure before we go to the voters box. And Kansas is also a more moderate state on social issues. It's still the more rural areas are very socially conservative, but like the suburbs, which is still votes heavily Republican, it is trending left a little bit, but it's still a Republican area. Those parts are very socially moderate, and like it's like they voted heavily for Trump, but if you look at the map and for this measure, they voted heavily no, and that's mostly because they're more socially moderate, and also they just don't care. They don't care about ballot measures, which and so. Yeah, so abortion, this was kind of an L last night. This was the one L. Abortion will remain legal in Kansas, which is very sad. Unfortunately, babies are going to get murdered because some idiot couldn't figure out how to write a ballot measure properly without making it a paragraph long and rambling on with these big words that your average voter isn't going to care about. But that said, it's not going to matter because if we go over to the governor primary, let's see here. Laura Kelly is the incumbent Democratic governor, and she's a Democrat, and she is pro-choice. And Derek Schmidt is the Republican candidate for governor, and he has vowed to outlaw abortion. Republicans control the state legislature, so once Laura Kelly loses in November, which she will, because Kansas, like I said, it's a very Republican state, red wave year, Derek Schmidt's going to win the election handily. Once Derek Schmidt becomes governor and Republicans have control of the governorship, the state senate, and the state house, Republicans have basically said that they will begin outlawing abortion. All this would give the state legislature the power to do it sooner, but since it failed, they won't be able to do it until we take control of the governorship. So unfortunately, abortion will remain legal in Kansas for a few more months. But that said, once Republicans win the governor election, which if you look at the polls, you look at just national environment, it's more likely than not they are going to. We will still be able to ban abortion and pass restrictions on it. It's just we have to wait because this ballot measure failed, which is very sad. Last state I want to look at is the state of Washington. This was kind of an L as well, or at least it seems like it, because we've all been hyping up Tiffany Smiley as possibly being this underdog candidate to take on Patty Murray. The results came in, and she only got 32% of the vote to Patty Murray's 54%. She got absolutely destroyed, it seems like. But if you go up, only 52% of the vote is in. Look at the areas that are yet to report. It's a lot of rural areas. Some rural areas. It's Spokane. Some parts of the state, like let's see, Stevens County, 22% in. Let's see, Yakima. So yeah, there's a lot of vote outstanding, especially in the more suburban areas. Look at some of these counties. 62% in, 48% in, 43% in. Let's see, 62% in, 58% in. A lot of the counties Tiffany Smiley would need to do well and to win in the general. She would have to do very well, max out the rural areas, which unfortunately doesn't seem like she really did. She did decently, I guess, but she didn't really max out, which is unfortunate to see. That's not a good sign. But like I said, there is a lot of vote outstanding in some of these counties. And then she also would have to do well in the suburbs, which, like I said, she has not done very well, and it doesn't seem like. But only like half of the vote has been counted. I want to check in on this race later. If all the results come in, and this is still the same margin, then Tiffany Smiley, unfortunately, is screwed. And we just hyped up this race too much. But if results come in, this race narrows up quite a bit, which I think it will. There's a lot of vote outstanding in some suburban counties and some rural counties as well. Meanwhile, King County, there's a lot of vote outstanding still. It's still really too early to tell. But overall, it does look like Republicans are going to narrow this race up a bit. It just depends on how much. So with that, thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more.